And I have 9 o'clock, so let's get started.
All right, Ted, I just wanted to make a couple of quick announcements, and then we can get going. First, I want to thank everyone for being with us this morning. I'm Brandon Johannes, the President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. As I mentioned a few moments ago, I do apologize for not being on video. I just had to unexpectedly take my wife to work, and that cut into my time to get ready this morning. We are glad to have our legislators with us. Really appreciate them for spending their Saturday morning time with us. I want to recognize Frontier Community Credit Union for serving as the Chamber's Government Affairs sponsor. I want to thank Dr. Ted Davis, who not only chairs our Government Affairs Committee, but is also going to be our moderator, timekeeper, and just general driver today. Thank you, Ted, for that. I would ask that unless you're engaged or speaking, try to keep yourselves muted until we get to a question and answer section. And more than anything, the important thing, what we're here for this morning is information for updates. I would just ask that everyone remain civil and hear each other out. And I think we'll have a great time. With that, Ted, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Brandon. Good morning, everyone. We're glad that you could join us, and I appreciate all 5 legislators who are with us today. Excuse me. Let me first go over our format, the agenda. We're going to start off and offer each of our 5 legislators 4 minutes each to make opening statement about what they see is happening in the legislature, what's going on, so from their perspective. So I'll have 4 minutes to give us a background. And then I'll have a few questions representing the Chamber of Commerce. I'll give each of the legislators 2 minutes to respond to those questions. And then when I'm finished with those 4 questions, then we'll open it up. When we open it up to questions, if you could either use the icons on the software and kind of raise a hand so I can call on you, or if you want to type it into the chat box, if you would type your question in the chat box, and I'll read it to the group, and we can pass it on to the legislators. And the legislators will each have a minute to respond to those questions. Excuse me, 2 minutes. 2 minutes to respond to those. When we're all done, and the last few minutes will be a minute summary for each of the legislators. So with that, if we're ready to go, let us open up for each of the legislators. First off will be Senator Jeff Pittman. This is his first term in the Senate. As all of us know, he was in the House beforehand. He now sits on at least 4 committees that I can see at the Senate: Finance, Institutions and Insurance, Transportation, Information Technology, and Kansas Security. So with that, Senator Pittman, please.
Thanks so much, Ted. Sound check. Can you hear me okay?
We do. We hear you fine.
Fantastic. You know, I am the son of a combat veteran. I was raised here in Leavenworth, and I did go to MIT in Oxford. I came back and served as you mentioned, the representative of Leavenworth for 4 years. And, you know, at that time, I promised a fiscally responsible kind of fix to the funding of education capers, roads, and I've kept those promises, ending the Brownback tax experiment that bankrupted our state back in the day. And now's the time for bipartisan leadership. I know it's hard right now. This is a very difficult time in our country, but I still have hope. We've done it before. We can do it again. And so now I'm serving as the state senator for Senate District 5, and that covers Leavenworth, Lansing, Bonner Springs, Edwardsville, and Piper. And I was humbled to be elected as the minority caucus chair, and I serve in leadership, and that was a particularly big deal, mainly because I'm a freshman senator, so I was honored by that as well. So I've been working hard every day, championing our community needs for our students, our correction staffs, our military and veterans, looking for affordable healthcare options and more. In the past, I did serve on corrections. I served on transportation in the House, military and veterans, agriculture, which covers about 53% of our state's GDP, and now I'm the ranking member on financial institutions, and I serve on insurance and transportation in the Senate, which helped pass that 10-year transportation plan. And these committees also cover part of the budget, just so you kind of have an idea about that. And the technology committee, that's a big one right now, right, with KDOL. I know how frustrating for some of our citizens right now. One of the big issues that we're dealing with, I know I am, and I know some of the representatives obviously are. I've got a big area of folks that are having issues with unemployment. So I just want to address that. KDOL, they had issues early on back in March with this. They fixed it for a while. Things were running smoothly, and then as they were delivering these benefits out, they got hit by a huge amount of fraud attempts, and so that became a huge issue. And in the last 6 weeks, they put in an identification mechanism to help stop the fraud because it was just running rampant. And then we had a huge spikes over the last 6 weeks in unemployment claims, and that's a lot of what a lot of us have been dealing with, is just helping our citizens navigate the process. We know there's a big issue there, and I continue to push for that. I did push for increased technology spending back over the last couple of years, but until it's broken, a lot of people don't want to fix it, and that thing has been in KDOL for about 40 years, and that's been a huge issue. But I continue to prioritize where I can to get our vaccines out there and get people access to information about how they can get access to these vaccines. I'll say that we're going to address some issues on transportation and the pandemic here and the questions that you've got lined up. But I'll say this: in the first 2 months, I've had some really great successes. I'll mention up front, first and foremost, is getting us started on this new veterans home here in Northeast Kansas. I know that many of my colleagues were working on this in the House. I was working on this in the Senate in parallel. This process started last session. I had a bill out there that stalled due to COVID. It was a bipartisan push then. And it's an issue that's been identified as one of the top issues for veterans organizations in Kansas when polled last year. So this is a big deal. The governor put us on directed the agency to put us on the list. And that list is the federal VA home list, which they'll pay 65% of the construction costs if we're selected on that list. So I'm excited about that. Northeast Kansas is heavy in terms of the concentration of veterans, and this is a big win for our area. And I hope that we can all keep pushing for that. The Senate also passed out one of my bills that helps protect our VFW, Patriot Guard, and Buffalo Soldier funeral escorts. That's SB 131. I'm excited to be an advocate for that. And we'll go into, as I said, the other issues that you've got lined up here, and we'll have some Q&A. But I'll mention here that I'm having a hearing on the Golden Years tax relief bill with Tom Holland this week on Thursday, and that basically gives property tax stability to those over 65. When their tax assessment goes up. I know that's a big issue this week here locally. I've had a good hearing on adding correctional staff to the KPNF retirement plan. I'm working with a bill with the administration on improving our Cybersecurity Act and some other bills that do risk-based assessment on technology projects for oversight by the legislature.
Okay, Senator, thank you. Appreciate your opening remarks.
Yep.
Let's move on to Representative Johnson from the 38th District, State Representative District. This is his first term, I believe, and his
yes, sir.
Yep, I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but on the K through 12 Education Budget Committee, the Veterans and Military, and the Senior Children and Seniors Committees.
Yes, sir, I am.
Right, sir. So thank you for joining us. Please, Representative Johnson, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much. This is a wonderful day the Lord has given us. I'm sitting on my enclosed back porch for the first time since winter started, listening to the birds sing, and I just feel good today. Yes, this is my first term. I had 31 years in the criminal justice field, finishing up with child abuse investigations, and then I have taught at Baser Linwood High School the last number of years as a second career, and I left there on December 21st and went right to the legislature thinking I knew what was going to happen, and I am back in grad school. I know things are so different, and I'm sure Jeff Pittman would share. It's just like a graveyard because of COVID. I'm not getting to visit with patrons that would like to come up. I'm not seeing the tour groups, people that need to come see us. I am sitting in the balcony, high, far away from the floor, And so I don't even get to always benefit from the wisdom of some of the other representatives and discuss things. And so that has been a real challenge for us. Now, clearly, we're going at a breakneck speed right now in the House of Representatives. I did not anticipate that the legislation would go through so quickly. So with that, I have worked very hard in those three committees because I committed myself to education and kids. I wanted to work on those committees and the veterans. And I am finding it difficult to keep up with the amount of reading. I know Mr. Proctor's a college professor, so I hope he's taking it easier on them than the paperwork that I get. I find it very difficult to keep up with all the other bills coming from all the other committees. I am very thankful for the work in our Children and Seniors Committee. We were able to put out a couple bills already that are going to go through that had bipartisan support that are going to support protections for our seniors. And we know that physical abuse and or financial abuse of seniors can be a critical issue. And we have gotten that going, and it passed. I was able to carry that as my first bill on the floor. And I look forward to that coming out because I see financial issues for seniors who don't always understand and then get cheated out of their money. I'm very thankful for that. K through 12 education. Wow. I'm a teacher. I have degrees in education. I am finding the budget process incredible. Trying to accommodate superintendents who make $250,000 a year, keeping the teachers happy. Clearly, the KNEA is not happy with anything a Republican does. It amazes me. They don't even want to talk at times. And so I'm disappointed on that. But I think there's going to be a huge battle this next week over the K through 12 budget. We have to fund it. We have to fund that money for our kids, but we need to make sure it goes to the kids. Finally, I want to thank Senator Pittman. He came over to the Veterans Committee. He's not on that and spoke to the second half of that veterans bill, and I know he's supporting it over in the Senate. I come to it in the second year, but I'm going to tell you the Leavenworth County delegation, Proctor, Neely, French, Johnson, and Pittman, folks, we're on this. This is important to us, and now I see the governor's support behind it. We're going to get this. I don't know where. This is my personal preference, is I'd like to see it on the K7 corridor. I have spoken with the mayor in Kansas City, Wyandotte County Unified Government about some of the land along K7 so that it could possibly be in Wyandotte County, but if not, clearly along that corridor, because I think the Leavenworth transportation corridor on K7 is critical, and I think that's an area that needs to be developed. I know that's one of the questions. So that's where I'm at. The Transparency and Tax Act that we did on Thursday, good bill. Glad to work on that, and Adrian's Law.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. Appreciate that. Okay, next we'll go to Representative David French. I believe this is your second tour of duty in the representative, second term. Also serving on the Veterans and Military Committee, General Government, Budget, Corrections, and Juvenile Justice. So thank you for serving in representative for your second term, sir. And I'll turn the floor over to Representative French.
Good morning, and thank you very much for that introduction. Yes, I am David French. I am the state representative for the 40th District, which includes the city of Lansing and about the southern half of the city of Leavenworth. This is my third year in the House. I'm a 43-year veteran, both of serving in the Army and in supporting the Army. I have lived in the Leavenworth area for over 30 years and was elected again in 2018 for my first term. I am on the Corrections and Juvenile Justice Committee. That is important because the Lansing Correctional Facility resides in my district. And so I have a lot of interface with them, making sure that our people that work there are adequately taken care of. I'm on the Military and Veterans Affairs, like Representative Johnson said. We all 4 of our representatives are on that committee. We have all worked for this soldiers' home in Northeast Kansas. And I agree. I think we're going to get it done finally after many years of talking about it. We're actually going to see some movement on that. It won't happen quickly, but it will start happening, and that's what's important. The other committee I'm on is the General Government Budget Committee. That budget committee reviews all the agencies' budgets and decides based on what they request, what we can afford. And that is a very interesting committee that I get to look at up to 40, 50 different agencies' budgets. It's amazing how big our state government really is. I have had hopes for 3 things this year. I am a Republican, so I believe in Republican principles. I believe in pro-life. I believe that we had to have the value them both amendment passed, resolution passed this year to get an amendment on the ballot next year in August to allow the people of Kansas to decide if their representatives are the ones to decide the issues of abortion and not 7 judges, unelected judges on the Supreme Court. So I was happy to see that passed. So that will be on the ballot next year. I believe in small government. I don't believe in government restrictions, and we have seen a bunch of those in the last year because of the COVID. That is going to have to come to an end, and we did that this week. We voted for a bill that would basically revamp the Kansas Emergency Management Act that would provide more legislative oversight of the executive branch, which I believe we need to have. We need to get Kansas back open. That's going to be very important for our economy. We've had major losses in revenue the last year because of the shutdowns. And the last thing, of course, was the property tax. We all know property taxes are a major issue. We've just passed a new transparency bill that's going to allow the taxpayer to better understand his tax bill when it comes to property taxes. So real happy with all 3 of those. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the term when we can handle some other issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your response and for being right on time. All right, our next legislator will be State Representative Pat Proctor from the 41st District. This is his first term. He's on the Insurance and Pensions Committee, the Veterans and Military Committee, the Transportation Committee, and Elections Committee. So, Pat, please.
Well, first, thank you to the Chamber for hosting this forum today. I think it's really important that we communicate with the people of Leavenworth County, and thank you, Ted, for moderating today. I appreciate it, and being such a great communicator as we were building up to this. I voted on a lot of bills and carried a lot of bills on the floor of the House over the last 2 months. So I'm just going to focus in my opening on a couple issues that I don't think are going to come up during the discussion. First is I joined Representative French in celebrating the fact that we got the value them both amendment or resolution passed. What this does is it reverses the disastrous Supreme Court decision from April 2019 that there's a fundamental right to abortion written into our Constitution. And it restores the rights of the people of Kansas through their legislators to place common sense restrictions on the abortion industry, like no taxpayer funded abortion and teens having to notify their parents before they get an abortion. And so I'm happy that the people of Kansas are going to get to vote for themselves on this next year. A couple other issues that I've been working on, things that we've been promised for years and years and years that we're just never getting any movement. The first of those is Centennial Bridge. For years we were told it was on the list, And when I got to Topeka, I found out it was on the list. It was on the unfunded list. And so, I've been a real burr in the saddle of the KDOT for the last 2 months, pressing both in the transportation committee, but also in private with the staff. And we finally got the great news here last week that we've moved to the funded list for a replacement bridge. They're going to start putting requests for proposals out in May. And right now, the projected date is 5 years from now, and that's not good enough for me. So I'm just continuing to fight to get that moved to the left. And I've got some great news to report in that. Last week, I carried House Bill 2201 on the floor of the House, and it passed with an overwhelming majority. It allows KDOT to jump over the old legacy T-Works list and get right to the Eisenhower list that our bridge is on if they get federal stimulus funds. So hopefully they'll be able to knock that list down and move our bridge up. As several legislators said, we've been promised for years this veterans home and it's gone nowhere. So before I even swore in, I went and I pre-filed House Bill 2020 and 2021, and they've been co-sponsored by all the representatives that are here today. The governor gave us some great news. She issued an executive order that basically is the same language as House Bill 2020 that directs the Commission on Veterans Affairs to apply for that federal grant. But we are not there until we get House Bill 2021 passed, because that actually appropriates the money, our 35% match for Kansas, and that grant will not be approved if we haven't appropriated the money. One last issue I'd like to mention quickly is House Bill 2066. I was a co-sponsor of this bill because it was the number one issue that I heard about every time I went to Fort Leavenworth, from military and civilian leaders, from soldiers and spouses. Majors come here to CGSC for a year, and their spouse spends the entire year trying to get their professional certifications, whether that's health and beauty or medical or technical, transferred to Kansas, and they never get to work. And so that passed the House. And, it's great for our military spouses, but it's also great for the Leavenworth economy, because it's going to allow us to tap all that great talent on Fort Leavenworth and get it working for our town. And so with that, I look forward to a great discussion, and thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Proctor. And then we'll go to Representative Lance Neely from District 42. His first term as well, and he is serving on the Judiciary, Financial Institutions and Rural Development, Veterans and Military, and Transportation Committees. So with that, I'll turn the floor over to Representative Neely. There we go.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Lance Neely. I'm the state representative from the 42nd District. My district is the Eudora, Tonganoxie, Easton area. I border Leavenworth and Lansing, and come up and wrap around and go up there to the state line. So the Transportation Committee, I'm on I'm on the Financial Institutions and Rural Development Committee, and I'm on Judiciary. And so to say, here the other representatives, you've heard them say that it was busy. It has been busy. For example, Judiciary, which I have to say, a lot of people were surprised. That's, I think, one of my favorite committees. We were hearing 3 to 5 bills a day. And so
is everyone else having problems hearing Representative Neely?
the amount of reading, but it's fun. And there are times when there are testimonies that are hard to hear. The other representatives, you hear me?
It's spotty, sir. It's coming
Got
in.
a bad,
Okay.
think.
I was afraid of that. And we here in Tom and Knoxville, our internet is not very good.
Are you saying we need to increase our rural broadband there, Lance?
Yes, sir, Mr. We're out here. We're limited to the choices that we have, so that's a problem. I would like to see a little more, choices and ability for other companies to come in here and help with that. I won't echo a lot of the stuff that the other representatives and Senator Pittman said, but the Veterans Home is a huge thing for this area. I'm very excited to be able to assist with that. We have the other three representatives and myself have worked really well together. Anything that they had going on, I attempted to assist with. Anything that I had going on, they attempted to assist with. And we've worked really well together in doing some of these things. The number one thing that we've all had to deal with was the unemployment, and the sadness that I have with that situation. I had constituents calling up crying that they hadn't been paid in the last 8 weeks, or in one case, they hadn't been paid since October. And that's unacceptable, and it's horrible. I don't know how many of you, if you think about that, could get by for 8, 10, 12 weeks without being paid at all. It's horrible. And we have to take steps to make sure that this doesn't occur anymore. And they are taking steps towards that. We've worked really hard, calling constituents and trying to assist communication between them and KDOL. So that's been a huge thing on a daily basis, along with all the other things that we've been doing. Some of the other things, I've been going around and trying to make sure that everybody was okay during with the cold snap. There were things that happened during that, and I received emails, and I've reached out to people. People had pipes break and things like that. We did put in some bills. They're going to allocate $100 million for the cities to try and spread out those bills that were going to be affected with that situation, so that there are not such astronomical bills going to be hitting the cities, and that will keep it from hitting the constituents. And that was done on an emergency basis. We had to get that pushed through, and it literally was pushed through within a day so that we could get that money and get the city started with that type of situation and get it fixed. Thank you. I'll go on and let you guys go on to the next stuff.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Neely. All right, I have 4 questions. I'll ask the question and give each representative and each legislator 2 minutes. I'd like to, after I ask the question for the first round, start with our newest legislators and work our way up to both Representative French and Senator Pittman. So let me start with Representative Johnson. So the first question we have for all of you, the COVID-19 pandemic obviously has caused unprecedented public health and economic crisis. And unfortunately, many small businesses have had to close permanently, while others are operating on a fine line between being solvent and failing. So it remains uncertain when our community will get back to normal, whatever that is. Does the state of Kansas, so the question is, does the state of Kansas have the capacity to help small businesses? And if so, what is the legislature and you willing to do to specifically now, to help small businesses survive? Representative Johnson, would you start out, please? You're muted. You're muted.
So sorry.
No problem.
Thursday, can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Good? Thursday was so interesting to me because I watched the entire Senate House come together with a bill to take care of some of the utility costs that these cities are simply reeling under, businesses, and it appropriated money, large amount, to be able to give out in loans so that they can, I guess, spread the cost out over 10 years, because literally the exponential increase for some of these small businesses and cities, some of the small cities across the state. And I believe that the governor is going to take care of it right away. And we're going to get this money out there so that the businesses can keep going without going under any further because of the huge utility costs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, how about Representative Neely? Would you go second?
Sure. There have been multiple bills that came through that are going to attempt to assist small businesses in financial institutions and rural development. There was 2268, which dealt with rural development and helping assist, and the state treasurer was overseeing that. There's 2282. That's a guaranteed loan fund. I believe that might be an agricultural one, but I'd have to look it back up. But there were many bills that came through that were going to assist and help the small businesses coming up. Plus the fact that we have of course, things coming out from the governor, from federal, and the state will be obviously assisting in making sure that those things go on. There are multiple things going on with the financial institutions, including like USDA putting out new loans to help businesses. So there's probably so many, and obviously some of them are very complicated, that it's going to be difficult for some of them to even keep up and figure out how to get the help that they need. And I'll let some of the other ones talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, Representative Proctor, would you go next, please?
Thank you. Thanks for the question. So, I'm a small business owner. We had 4 restaurants before the pandemic, and now we only got 3. So obviously, top priority for me is rebuilding the Kansas economy after this disastrous coronavirus economic shutdown, bringing jobs and opportunity back to Leavenworth. And I think a big way we can do that we're already working on is bringing accountability back to our property tax system. I don't think I need to tell anybody, if you got your property tax bill, valuations are out of control. Here in Leavenworth County, our property tax valuations went up almost 9%. Even here in the city of Leavenworth, it went up near 7%. My house went up 13%, and the only thing I did to it was mow the lawn for a year. And commercial properties get hit with a much higher multiplier on their property taxes, and that drives businesses out of our town. I watched Wendy Scheid at the city from the Leavenworth Main Street at the city commission meeting the other day say that 22 empty storefronts now in downtown Leavenworth. And I've counted more, but whatever the number, it's too many, because that's jobs that are just gone. So that's why I voted this week for Senate Bill 13. It had overwhelming bipartisan support. It takes the teeth out of these valuations increases by forcing city and county commissions to vote if they're going to take in more property tax revenue. They have to affirmatively vote that they're going to raise our taxes, or the mill levy will automatically drop so that they make the same amount that they made the year before. And, it brings additional accountability to our property tax system. It'll lower the tax bills for homeowners and business owners. That also helps renters, because renters don't have to, their rents won't keep going up because of higher property taxes, but it helps business owners keep more money in their pocket. And that's money that they can use to hire more employees and get our economy back on track.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Representative French.
Thank you. And yeah, I think the first thing we need to do is open up Kansas. We have to get businesses back going full force. That hasn't happened since March of last year. We've lost tens of thousands of small businesses. We've got tens of thousands more barely hanging on, all because of the government mandates of deciding shutdowns, who's essential, who isn't, limiting capacity in our businesses, requiring a face mask, which a lot of times turns off customers. They don't want to go in because they have to wear a face mask. So the thing we have to do is open up Kansas. And we did that Thursday when in the House we voted for HB 2416, which basically is going to require the governor to go through the legislature for any future lockdowns on our businesses. And so I think that is the first thing we've done. Now we've got to find a way to help those businesses that are still struggling. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Yeah, so the businesses, back in March when the pandemic hit, I worked with the small businesses around here to see what they needed. I helped them navigate through the many different programs. The PPP loans were big. There were some grants that were available out there. I partnered with Main Street to kind of get up-to-date information out to businesses. And while some businesses have indeed closed permanently, we see others have adapted and some have thrived and are seeing, really good things happening. And so we know the business world and retail is changing. And to make it through this, I really believe that our businesses need access to capital in different forms to make it through until things get either back to normal or they bridge them to figure out how they can adapt to the business environment we're in. We had higher loans for the restaurant industry, such as Mr. Proctor's business, that allowed for grant or loans originally. They went out to 344 businesses and communities. And this week, the governor actually said that these are all going to be forgiven. And so those are now grants, much like the PPP loans were then converted into grants for these businesses. And so that's a fantastic thing. I do sit on financial institutions in the Senate, and we had Senate Bill 13, which was sponsored by the banks. And it was about providing $60 million in low-cost loans out to Kansas businesses. And I was a full supporter. I worked with the state treasurer on that. It's using state treasurer money, the PMIB loans, money that's out there, not our general budget, to provide the capital out and then to have it repaid. So that's a good program. There's the marketplace facilitator potential tax. What this does is it puts taxes on to those facilitators out there like Amazon or Etsy, and that puts our local retailers on a level playing field when it comes to sales tax. No longer giving them free sales tax to the online world, but rather putting it so that our folks can compete locally. I do, like I said, I support a number of loans. There's a couple of programs we just passed out of the Senate this week, which I was in full support of. It's the HPIP, the High Performance Incentive Plan, STAR bonds. And then I was able to help change the cap so that it applied to Leavenworth on this RHID. And what that does is it allows loans for redevelopment and of second story buildings so that the top you need apartments downtown on top of some of these retail locations. This program allows low cost loans to go to those business owners that want to maximize their revenue by developing the top floor of these downtown. So those are real programs that are affecting our local folks. Like I said, access to capital, we can do that as a state. There is resistance to some that we're overreaching, but this is actually helping us do economic development, and I'm a big supporter of that here locally.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Appreciate all five of you answering our question about response to COVID pandemic. Next topic, some of you have touched on in your introductions, has to do with transportation. So obviously, as you've all mentioned, safe, high-speed transportation of goods and services in Leavenworth, Lansing is incredibly important to our economic vibrancy. So besides the work on the getting the Centennial Bridge onto the funded list and moved up the list, what are the things that are going on? What's going to be happening to help solve our long-term transportation system needs and anything specific that you're doing for the counties and cities. And if we could start with Senator Pittman.
Yeah, let me go off mute there. Yeah, absolutely. Transportation's been big for me. I served on it for 4 years back in the day and did help put together this Eisenhower Ike plan that looks out 10 years and provides funding. Looking at the last 10 years plans, the T-Works plans and prioritizes those, but also puts in new plans. Where the Centennial Bridge, we put that on there last session as we were getting out. We had 4 hours to go. We got it on there and got that prioritized. And so that's awesome. And I'm absolutely happy that we're actually letting projects out for that. Part of the key for transportation is keeping the funding going. And when I first got in there, we were borrowing something like $500 million, $550 million from the transportation plan to pay for other things. And now through the reforms we put in place, we're now able to not sweep as much. We're still sweeping a little bit, but there's something like $375 million more available for transportation, and that's huge. I've worked with the local, advocates on looking at a comprehensive plan here in Leavenworth and coordinating that with Wyandotte, and starting to get involved with the MARC options in terms of looking at a strategic plan, because we know that the northwest quadrant of Kansas City is underdeveloped, and part of that is the transportation options here. And so that means we might have to consider things like the Eastern Gateway Bridge project and understand what would be the cost. I've worked with the Secretary of Transportation on that. I've worked with our county commissioners on that. I'm not saying I'm for or against it. I'm saying I'm for options and looking at options like that. And so I've been working with coordinating folks on that, understanding where we sit in terms of the transportation plan. And that includes going out through Tonganoxie and understanding what our 435 loop footprint looks like now, 10 years and 20 years in the future. So I continue to support that. I'm on the transportation committee, so that's a great voice. I know we have others locally that are in the House on transportation, and that's a good thing for Leavenworth.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Pittman. Representative French, would you share next?
Yeah, I have to agree with the senator. I think we need to continue to look at ways to expand our transportation system into Leavenworth. I don't sit on the transportation committee, so I'll let those that do give you more ideas of what is in the pipeline. I do believe that we have to continue to look at ways to improve the transportation into our area. I would say that we don't want to become a suburb of Kansas City. There's a lot of people in Leavenworth that I've talked to that do not want to become a suburb of Kansas City. We like to be our own little small town that allows people from Kansas City to come visit us, but that we don't have to actually be part of the big city and all the big city problems. So it's not, everybody doesn't want the Leavenworth area to become just another suburb of Kansas City. And that's got to be considered also as we look at the ways of improving transportation into the area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Representative Johnson, would you share next?
Yes, thank you. K7 corridor is critical. I want to thank the Baser Mayor, David Brewer. We've been working on a couple of the entrance exits along that K7 corridor. It's critical as it goes south from Lansing because that area has to develop. Wyandotte County has put into that region the fairgrounds, and there's other activities moving out. We have to provide access along these roadways. And that goes all the way to the Johnson County border. We need to be working together. As Wyandotte County develops along the State Avenue corridor and connects, we need to be able to get people up into our area to benefit and our businesses. I'm also working to support the Baser-Linwood School District as we build a new grade school on K32 Highway. I recently contacted the Department of Transportation, trying to get their support for road work as Baser-Linwood puts in the new Linwood Elementary School. And we know that K32 is going to connect into the K7, and they're all together. And I think, although I may not work with the Leavenworth Lansing Chamber as much, I really feel that the Bonner Springs City Council and the Basser Council, that we're working together for their plans. And I hope that they will work and fit into what you're doing in northern Leavenworth. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Proctor.
Thanks for the question again, Ted. So the Centennial Bridge, getting it off the unfunded list and finally onto the funded list was a huge first step. But, I agree with Senator Pittman. We've got to stop withdrawing from the bank of KDOT. And Governor Kelly's made withdrawals in that bank too for over $100 million. And that's in addition to her scheme to mortgage the promise of capers, which I've been fighting hard against. But, I'm also very interested in an initiative that's going on in the county commission with this Southern Bridge project. Last week, I sat down with Bill Knoll. He's the Director of Infrastructure and Construction Services at the county. Also in the meeting was Commissioner Mike Steben and Whitney Temple from Congressman LaTurner's office. We had a great discussion about it, but I'd tell you that project's probably still quite a ways off. It's a lot more expensive than replacing the Centennial Bridge, and they're looking at like a public-private partnership to get that done, but it's going to take a while to materialize. And in the meantime, we've got to connect I-70, connect ourselves to I-70, with a good uninterrupted highway. I know, Representative Bradford a few years ago had a failed attempt at a northwestern loop. And the conventional wisdom was, well, we got to get all the communities together. If all the communities can decide they all want the same thing, then these dollars will materialize. And the truth is that to get connected to I-70, to get those transportation dollars, we have to have a demand signal from Kansas City. And that means we got to get businesses moving here that they want to connect to. We got to bring jobs and opportunity back to Leavenworth if we want to get those transportation dollars.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Representative Neely.
Well, I'm a little further out, the other representatives and stuff that way. It is important to us for the Centennial Bridge. As Representative Proctor said, with the highway connecting, that's one situation out here. The I-70 exit for Tonganoxie and the County Road 1 corridor, that area, there's been multiple things going on with that as far as attempts to, build it up and stuff. I'm not a fan of the condemnation cases as was shown this last week when I stood up for some constituents. So I'm not a fan of taking other people's property to commit things to the government and things that way. So if things can be done without that occurring, I'm all for it. But taking other people's properties and homes and things that way is a problem that I've been dealing with up in Topeka and trying to help some constituents already. But we do need to get some businesses into the Leavenworth area, and especially down here in the Tonganoxie area, to try and get some tax relief and get the burden off the back of the homeowners. And I am all for that. And I think we have room to do that without taking property from other people.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you all dealing with the transportation issue. Our third area that we at the Chamber wanted to ask is it has to deal with mental health. So the demand for mental health services is growing. Was growing before the pandemic and certainly has exploded in the past year. This does affect the business climate. Mental health does affect the business climate. So it obviously concerns us at the Chamber. So what actions is the legislature taking to fund mental health grants and the state's mental health system? And are you supporting the expansion of Medicaid for behavioral health? If we could start with Representative Proctor.
Medicaid expansion does not do what the proponents claim that it's going to do and promise that it's going to do. 80% of the money for Medicaid expansion is going to go to the 5 biggest hospitals in Johnson County. And state hospitals like Osawatomie that actually provide mental health care can't even charge Medicaid because of these arcane laws that prevent one state agency from charging another. Look, we absolutely have a moral responsibility to take care of our most vulnerable neighbors. I absolutely acknowledge that. There's a lot of things that we can do to help them in terms of higher reimbursement rates for Medicaid and Medicare. But the top mental health problems that we're facing here in my neighborhood in North Leavenworth is addiction and depression. Those are diseases of despair and a loss of hope. Those problems were made much worse by the joblessness and isolation that came from the disastrous coronavirus economic lockdown. And so I voted with the majority to pass House Bill 2416, which reforms the Kansas Emergency Management Act. It forces Governor Kelly and any future governor to collaborate with the legislature instead of fighting with them, so that we get a more appropriate and measured response to the pandemic, rather than these draconian lockdowns that isolate people, put them out of work, and exacerbate these mental health problems. And then the other thing ultimately that we've got to do is to restore hope. We've got to give people a future. We got to get them back to work. We got to end this brutal cycle that I see way too often with my neighbors, of generational poverty that keeps people trapped in government dependency. We got to bring jobs and opportunity back to Leavenworth so that we can put these people back to work and give them hope for the future and replace that despair that they're in now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Senator Pittman, would you go second?
Absolutely. Well, in contrast, I do believe the hope of Medicaid expansion will help our mental health. It's been shown over and over again. We're one of 13 states or so that haven't expanded Medicaid, and it does help with mental health. Mental health enablement for those people who cannot afford services, who might be working at McDonald's or some other locations, who are in that gap, who might have a hard time getting to work due to mental health issues. That would absolutely help those folks get access to services. It is a workforce development consideration, and it is subsidized, if you will, by the federal government 90%. So I'm fully supportive of the Medicaid expansion, especially as a mental health impact as well as the workforce development impact. I'll say this, that I am a member of the mental health task force here locally. I'm looking at comprehensive strategies. I recently wrote a letter personally to help support the Guidance Center get access to a grant from SAMHSA, which deals with substance abuse and mental health services, hoping to help them get through this gap year of challenges in funding. And then I'll say we just passed out on the floor, and I certainly hope the House will support this as well, Senate Bill 238. And what that does is it's kind of it's a big movement towards services, community-based behavioral health clinics, and it expands access to telemedicine, and it provides an integrated way of financing care delivery and mental health. It addresses suicide crises, overdose, barriers to timely access. It helps veterans. It helps keep people from going to jail in that cycle, and fully supportive of it. And it's a great program that the state's put together to help address this. I do hope we can continue to prioritize mental health. I do think that there's more to it than hoping that the governor doesn't shut down our economy. I think that we have to look at it systematically.
Thank you, sir. Representative Johnson, would you?
Yes, thank you. Because of my education background the last few years, one of the fastest delivery points of aid in mental health is in our schools. And I know on the K through 12 budget committee, we've addressed that because there is a large pool of money coming into our state for education to correct the COVID issues. And I know in the budget that's proposed, we're asking for a large increase in the mental health delivery services. We have wonderful counselors already in place in our schools. They're seeing the kids, and we know that the schools probably can pick up on a lot of these problems quicker. And so I'm very strong in supporting that part of the budget that's going to come up here in a very short time. We also know there is a critical issue in law enforcement. because of the lack of beds for us for the mental health patients on emergency commitments. And that's the sheriff's department job to take them. Well, there's nowhere to take them, so they either put in jail. And I've been working with, I'm still a member of the Kansas Sheriff Association, and we're looking at some options and supporting a couple options that are coming up for that in the state of Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Representative Neely, would you answer next, please?
Yes, I did not have much dealings with that in the legislature this year. However, in looking up some of the things that had been occurring, the Stepping Up program that the governor has put in, I think is going to be a really good thing for the state of Kansas, and it helps with those that are in prison or in jails, and tries to help in treatment so that we don't have those people one misconstrued that they actually have an issue that needs to be helped instead of that they're actually doing something wrong or something that way. It also will help keep those people out of jails and out of prison. And I think that's going to be a great program, and I hope to see that continues on more. I know there's also the Kansas Mental Health Parity Act, and that's going to help. It does along the same types of things and helps with insurance covering mental health issues. And because of that type of thing, Blue Cross and Blue Shield has implemented programs, and so have other insurance companies. So I think we're going to see some more programs come out for mental health, and absolutely those type of things need to occur.
Good, thank you. Representative French.
Thank you. I echo the words of my fellow representatives. They said it as well as I could. All good comments, and I totally agree with those. The proponents of Medicaid expansion continue to believe it's the panacea of all of our state's problems, and it's not. As Representative Proctor says, it will help very few and at the cost of the rest of us. We couldn't afford Medicaid expansion 2 years ago, and with the current financial situation of the state, we definitely can't afford it today. So I will be voting against any Medicaid expansion bill. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. What I'd like to do, given the time that's available, is open it up to our participants, those who've joined us. And so the first question comes from Chris Logan. She wrote a question that's on the chat box. So I say it, Chris. I don't know if it's male or female. I apologize if I insulted him or her. HB 2184, creating the Kansas Medical Cannabis Regulation Act. I would like to know each of the representatives' positions on this bill. Will you support inhalation and home growth amendments? If we could start with Representative Neely, please.
That's been an interesting topic, and I actually was hoping this year that medical marijuana would come out in the legislature. I lost my father about 4 years ago to cancer, and obviously that type of thing was not available. I'm a proponent of it being in pill form. I'm afraid that as far as medical marijuana. As far as home growing, I don't know that I'm that far yet. There's already so many regulations, even for the farmers to do that many of them are incapable of affording to grow marijuana and stuff right now. So there's going to have to be a massive cut in regulations and things that way in order for it to be grown before it's going to be practical for it to be homegrown. It can't even be grown in industrial things right now to where it's affordable here in Kansas. There's just too many regulations.
All right. Let me open it up to any of the representatives and Senator Pittman. Any of you who want to answer Chris's question. Senator Pittman, please.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks for that question, Chris. I've been fully supportive of this. When I went out and polled a lot of local veterans, they were supportive of it. Medical marijuana, I've co-sponsored it with Senator John Dahl this year. I think it's high time, no pun intended, that we do this. I would support homegrown as well. I think that people should have their property rights, and honestly, this should be taken care of at the federal level. We should take it off of the Schedule 1. 47 states besides us have taken some action on this. It's time we do something. I think that it has been blocked by the majority party's leadership in particular, who said that they would never allow this to happen over the last 4 years. I think it might be having a change of heart. There's a real option here. There's growing support for it. There's polling that shows that. And so I do support that, and I support the amendments. I think we should be taking action on this sooner rather than later, both for the people who need some relief as well as some of the revenues that'll happen for the state.
Thank you. Representative Proctor.
Thanks, Ted. I'm one local veteran that is not in favor of this measure, and I'd like to talk a little bit about why. So I went to Colorado Springs right before I retired when I was still in the Army for an exercise, and they have a huge problem with their legalization of marijuana, and a lot of counties are actually re-illegalizing marijuana because of all the issues. One of them is, they've had a huge explosion of opioid addiction after they legalized marijuana. So, I think the science is not in on this, but maybe that stuff we were told in the third grade about marijuana being a gateway drug, maybe there is something to that. And I'd like to have a definitive answer before we do this. But another big problem that they have is they have these cartels that move into areas. The sheriff was talking to me the other day about Pueblo, Colorado. Cartels moved in, bought up whole neighborhoods, kind of the more economically disadvantaged neighborhoods, and turned them into huge drug farms with these, because you could grow 5 plants per house in your house. So they'd build these huge hydroponic systems and grow these 5 mega plants, totally destroy the houses, and then just leave the neighborhood abandoned for the town to clean up. And then, you can't put the money in the bank because it's illegal federally. So you got big trucks full of cash moving all over the state. It's just wrought with peril for fraud. And so before we legalize this at the state level, this needs to be dealt with at the federal level, because while it's still illegal at the federal level, if we legalize it here in Kansas, we are just setting ourselves up to become a huge drug farm, especially here in North Leavenworth. This is my neighborhood, and it's an economically disadvantaged neighborhood. And I'm going to be living in a pot farm if we legalize marijuana.
Thank you. Representative Johnson or French, you want to say anything?
Thank you. I just wanted to address the leadership, the House leadership. Majority or the floor leader spoke on a radio show in Kansas City, Missouri. He was ready to call it up. He thinks it should come through a vote, but he doesn't want it attached to Medicaid. And I think that was part of the issue that was concerned, that they're separate issues if they're going to be called up. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative French, anything you want to add?
I think my position is well known. I am against any form of marijuana coming into this state.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Next question comes from Judy Price. She writes that HB 2119, as currently written, erodes local control of public schools and financially punishes school districts for using remote learning while providing for public tax dollars to allow for private school tuitions. Private schools do not have the same oversight as public schools. What are your stances for this bill and why? If we could start with Representative French.
Yes, I believe we have to have the best education for our children, wherever that is. And right now, we're not getting that through our public school system for whatever reason. And I've heard of many. So I believe I believe in school choice. I believe that the school funding should follow the student, and parents should have the right to determine where their children should go to get their best education. I am not against public education, but I'm against bad public education, and right now that's what we have. So I will continue to support the right of parents to choose where they should take their children to get the best education for their children. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Neely, anything?
I'm for the school choice. We found out, and I think a lot of parents found out this last time, whether this was going to be something that will work for homeschooling, the ability to turn around and go to the private schools. The money following the student, I think, is a good idea. I realize that the public schools don't want this to happen and anything, that they'll see a minor amount of students that change. I don't think we're going to see a wagon train of students going out of the public schools and into private schools or into home schools. I think we allow our children and everything, and as a parent, we choose the colleges that we do when we get older. I think our education should be chosen, that ability should be able to be done at a younger age too, so.
Thank you. Senator Pittman, anything?
Honestly, I don't know everything that's gone into that. I think it's quite a conglomeration of education ideas that have been kind of put together. So I don't know if I can speak to that bill, although I will say I don't agree that our public schools are bad. I'm an advocate for our public schools across all zip codes and making sure all our kids, even in Representative Proctor's neighborhood, that's economically depressed, have access to a great education so that they can get out of that cycle of poverty. I guess I'll leave it at that I think that we need to continue to focus on innovation in our public schools. If we find that there is something that's not working, we should work towards getting better public schools so that everyone has access to an equal and equitable education. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Representative Johnson?
Yes, I'm on that committee, and it has been most eye-opening to me as we've gone through all these concepts. I will tell you that as I look at test results and statistics for our Leavenworth County schools, Basehor Linwood, I also have DeSoto, part of the Tonganoxie district, Lansing. I don't have Leavenworth, but I'm going to tell you these are good public schools. You have people that care and are working very hard, but that is not necessarily the case all over the state. We know a district just to the east of us was given over $100 million extra to deal with COVID issues, and they just simply wouldn't go to class. And we know that kids have to be back in class even if it was in a hybrid situation. So some of the response with getting kids back into school has nothing to do with Leavenworth. Again, I look at the schools in this area, they're wonderful. Pleasant Ridge, I've been up there for Scholars Bowl. We've got good schools. But a lot of what's happening deals with Wichita and Wyandotte County. And so we're going to continue to see that. I'm a little upset as I look at salaries for administrators in the Johnson County school districts. They make far more than our governor or the chief of staff in the United States military. Yet one of those districts refused to give lunches to non-district students during the summer, even though they got money for it. And so there have been some real issues that come up back and forth. I hope we solve them this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Proctor, anything?
Yeah, first, I'd like to thank Judy for the question. I'd like to thank you for your service on the school board. And that was such a good question. I'm going to vote to double your pay on the school board. So, no, but seriously, I haven't studied the specific bill because it hasn't come to a vote. And I usually look at stuff when it's coming up for a vote because there are just too many bills for me to keep track of. But I think in principle, more competition is a good thing. And I support families having a choice about how best to educate their kids. I'm an educator and I love education spending, but I really think that Kansas kids, especially disadvantaged kids, have not been served well by this remote learning regime that we've been under for so long. We have a great school district and we're doing a great job, but I think that we need more accountability to where our education dollars are going. I agree with the previous representative, the dollars, the salaries that 6 administrators in Shawnee School District are getting 6 figures. That's unsustainable for our education spending, and it's stealing from our kids in the classroom. So again, I haven't studied this particular measure, so I can't really say I support it or don't support it. But in principle, I want our parents to have more control over their kids' education.
All right, thank you. How about maybe open up to people that ask for themselves? You could kind of raise your hand either with an icon or just waving to the screen if you're on video. And let's see. Okay, Eric Price.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank all of you for taking time out on a beautiful Saturday morning to spend some time with us. And thank you to the Chamber for setting this up. The value of such opportunities cannot be overstated, especially under current circumstances. As Representative Johnson mentioned, where we constituents can't always meet with our representatives because of the situation being what it is right now. As I look at our legislative delegation, I notice that its makeup does not reflect the diversity of the community that it represents. And this is not meant as a dig at any of you gentlemen. I know that your presence in the legislature does reflect the will of the majority of the voters here in Leavenworth County. But my question to each of you is, how do you approach your legislative work to ensure that your efforts represent the interests of all of your constituents, and in particular, representing the interests of those who don't look, vote, worship, live, or love like you do? Thank you.
Okay. Senator Pittman, would you start us off, please?
You're not going to give me a chance to think about that one, huh?
Well, you've been in the legislature the longest. So.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good point. I do find when I go out and then go door to door and I try and interact as much as I can, make myself available. It's especially a lot easier during non-COVID times to do that. And I'll have some very conservative voices and some very liberal voices, as well as folks that don't necessarily sit on that spectrum. And I try and listen to their points of view to have it inform the decisions that I'm making and the things I'm pushing for. There are a lot, we have a lot of diversity, like you're saying, whether it's the gender preferences or whether they've been in prison or not in prison, whether they have a lot of money or a little money, whatever the color of their skin is. And I do support diverse voices. I try and interact with them. I try and think about the fact that I come from a certain background shouldn't dictate how the government should dictate their lives. And for me, that's important because I think government is meant to be a place where we can help navigate all those civil differences and all those different differences so that we as a country and a community can be better by working together and accepting of each other. That's just my approach on it. And I support a lot of different points of view. But, on occasion, you have to make decisions that will make some folks mad. And that is the way it goes. And I understand that a number of folks will be angry with some of the decisions that I've had to make, but hopefully we can continue to move forward as a country to make ourselves a better country and community.
Thank you so much. Representative French, would you answer next?
I agree totally with the senator. The first thing you learn when you get into politics is you're not going to make everybody happy. In fact, it's very hard to make most people happy. But you have to present your principles to the people and say, this is what I believe in. If you believe in them too, then put me as your representative. And that's what I've done. I've always represented my principles, and I've made the promises that I knew I could keep. And I've evidently had the majority of the people in my district support those principles. So I try to live by those principles. I vote by those principles. I know I'm not going to make everybody happy. I do represent everybody in my district. If they have a problem with the bureaucracy in Topeka, then I have to be their voice. But I cannot always vote the way everybody wants me to vote. It just is impossible. So I do the best I can to support those people that put me in to represent them and to keep my promises. And that's what I do. And it's a difficult position to be in, but somebody has to do it. And I'm glad that I have the honor to do it for my district. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Representative Neely, would you share your answer?
Yeah, most of the time, I don't even think about those type of situations. When we set up our deal for the problem we had with KDOL, we don't ask and everything whether the person's going to be a Republican or a Democrat or anything along those lines. We're attempting to help the people out there and our constituents, and that's what needs to happen. You do have to kind of look through their eyes when certain problems come up, because there's so many factors that can play into how somebody feels about something, including where they work, what their occupation is, and things that way. So I do try to do that, and I try to listen to people. I've met many times down at the restaurants and stuff with people that are having issues, and
You were muted somehow.
I got muted.
Yes.
I just said I tried to meet with as many constituents on issues that I could and stuff that way, and it doesn't matter and everything what they look like or anything that way.
Good, thank you. How about Representative Johnson?
Yes, very valid question. Basel Linwood School District, DeSoto School District, the stats show that they're in the top 20% in terms of what we would say wealth, in terms there is so few free and reduced lunches. So our school district is quite different than Wyandotte High School, where I taught for 5 years and where I grew up, where it was 98% free and reduced lunches. And racial issues, Hispanic issues, very important to me. I came out to Basel Linwood, I'll never forget, we came to Cinco de Mayo, there was nothing. And at Wyandotte High School, we made a point of celebrating the culture and the ideas of our Hispanics. And I guess maybe that does worry me a little, but I do see within the State House a movement to share those cultures, those ideas, because we are a melting pot, and that's what makes this country better. But it is clearly an issue, and I really strongly understand that, taking over this district in the 38th from Representative Willie Dove, a man of color who really was a pioneer in that regard. And it's an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Proctor.
I represent all the people in North Leavenworth and Fort Leavenworth, not just the people that look like me. And, I've committed to being the most accessible state representative this district's ever had. I got big shoes to fill in that regard, I admit. But I will meet with anyone. Give me a call, give me an email. My personal phone and my personal email are on the legislature website for me. My number is 913-250-5553. Give me a call if you want to meet with me. I've already done my third town hall in 2 months. This is my third town hall. I personally answer every phone call and every email that I get from a constituent. And, before I sworn in, I engaged with community agencies from a homeless shelter to the safety net clinic a block away to the school districts to law enforcement agencies to the prisons in our county. And when I was campaigning, I knocked over 4,000 doors, of people of every stripe. And I carry every one of those stories with me every day when I walk into the State House, and I'm committed to representing every one of those people.
Good. Excellent. Well, does anyone else have a question for the legislators? I don't see anyone waving at me, so. All right. Well, then, let me give each of you 2 minutes to kind of wrap up and share what you'd like to say. Let's start with Representative Neely.
Thank you very much. This was a great forum and good questions. I appreciate the chance to get on here and speak with you all. And as Representative Proctor said, I think all of us are open to the ability, where you can get a hold of us. And if you have more questions, if you didn't feel comfortable on here asking the question, you can get in touch with us and ask those questions, over the phone, or we can meet, whatever needs to be.
Unfortunately, we're losing you, Senator or Representative. Let's go on to Representative Johnson.
I just enjoy the people that I'm working with in Topeka. I know we at times go at it pretty good, but I'm blessed. I have Lance Neely as a roommate in my office. I have my buddies. I have Representative French as my mentor. Pat, the crazy guy, got a Lance. He's tilting at windmills every day. I just see people of faith up there sharing their ideas. I think we're going to make a difference, and I appreciate being there. And I hope that everyone else feels like we're trying to do what's right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Representative Proctor.
One issue we didn't get to that I want to hit really fast is retirement for our corrections officers. Our corrections officers are in corrections for capers, while all the other stripes of law enforcement officer are in capers for police and fire. I filed a bill at the beginning of the session, House Bill 2111. I wasn't able to get a hearing on it. So as Representative Johnson said, I'm fond of tilting at windmills. So I brought it to the floor and as an amendment to a capers bill. We weren't successful getting it through. They used, if it had gotten a vote, I'm convinced it would have passed, but they used some political and procedural maneuvers to keep it from getting a vote. And so I want to assure all my neighbors and the work at Lansing Correctional Facility that I'm not done. I'm coming back and I'm going to get that bill passed. So with that, thank you so much to the Chamber for hosting this today. It was a great forum. And Ted, thank you to you for being so transparent as we got up to this, and organizing this and for the moderating today. I am honored to serve you as your state representative, and I absolutely feel the weight of the responsibility that you placed on my shoulders. And so every day when I walk in that building, I'm fighting to bring things home for Leavenworth and Fort Leavenworth, and I'm fighting to bring jobs and opportunity back to our city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Representative French.
I think Leavenworth County should be very, very proud of the representatives. I am just honored to be serving with all of these gentlemen. And I think that in the future that we need to be even more diverse. I think I would like to see more women involved in this arena. I'd like to see more minorities involved in this arena. I'm not saying that we all should be white males. In fact, I think that's probably not good, but right now we have 5 good representatives representing this county, and so that's the first thing. We've done a lot of work so far. There's a lot of work left to be done this session. We've got to get a budget together. That's going to be very difficult with the current financial situation. So there's a lot of work that's going to be done. A lot more is going to have to come out of this session. And maybe hopefully at the end, the chamber will have us back and we can explain what actually happened this year. Thank you. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you, sir. And Senator Pittman, would you wrap it up, please?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Ted. Thanks to the Chamber for having this event. I missed them. I missed having the ability to chat out what's going on in the legislature. I do know that you can go to my webpage, votepittman.com, sign up for newsletters that come out every week, as well as my Facebook page. I'll mention 2 things that I need. We do have, we didn't mention anything about sports wagering. That just passed out of the Senate. That allows for betting on sporting events out of casinos. And then there's also utility rates in the last three weeks have spiked up, and I know I've had a lot of calls on that. So I want to let you know we did pass that Senate Bill 88 that helps cities normalize the rates that they were hit with, but we need to do more with figuring out how to allow our utilities to absorb the spikes, whether it's due to Wall Street or a supply and demand piece. Our citizens don't have the choice to turn off the utilities when the price gets high. They just don't know it's going up a lot of times. And so we need to do something more there. I also introduced the KPNF bill for correction officers. We did get a hearing on the Senate side, which I was very happy about. It went very well. I'm glad to hear I have colleagues working on the same issue in the House, and that's fantastic. I do put a shout out to each of my colleagues here that are in the House. I do miss it. It's a wild place sometimes, but I hope that they will continue to be strong voices, as it sounds like they have been out there. But we need to watch out for the budget. We do need to watch out for that. It is a hard time. We're getting through COVID. We have a lot of bills that have to do with social issues. I'm a bit more of a man of business. I believe we need to focus on the business of the state, not necessarily on regulating our fellow men and women and others out there. That we need to focus on getting through this pandemic. We need to watch out for these big corporate tax cuts that will gut our budget. We need to work with the administration. And when we see that there is overspending or there are needs of improvement, we need to come together as a constructive voice, not always just bashing each other. So I hope we can do that. It is an honor serving. It's an honor having the trust of the people out there. I do try to serve with integrity and openness and transparency. And so I appreciate that I've been elected for this next 4 years in the state Senate. So thank you again for all you guys do at the chamber as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank all 5 of our legislators today for participating, making it available to us. Thank you all for participating, coming and listening. Brandon, I'll turn it over to you and let you make any final comments to close us out.
All right. Thank you very much, Ted. Just a couple of quick comments. First off, I want to thank everyone for their participation today. This is my first interaction with Representatives Neely and Johnson. Very happy to have you with us this morning. Thank you, of course, as well to Representatives Proctor and French and Senator Pittman for your participation. Thank everyone for a civil conversation. That's the reason that the chamber continues to do things like this, is because the chamber represents both the communities of Leavenworth and Lansing. Our constituency knows no bounds, I think, sometimes. And so for everyone to come together and have conversations like this is I think, very fruitful and very crucial. Thank you especially to Representative Proctor and Senator Pittman for being members of the chamber. You are all always welcome and invited to join if you'd like. Just let me know. But Representative Proctor and Senator Pittman, thank you for your patronage of the chamber, of course. One last note, we will share this video. It's been recording this whole time so that we can share it with folks who were not able to attend. Watch our Facebook page for that. I think that'll be the easiest and fastest way to share the video. So that'll be up no later than Monday on our Facebook page. Thank you very much to my good friend, Dr. Ted Davis, for not just chairing the Chamber's Government Affairs Committee, but for moderating today's conversation. And with that, I will just say, unless anyone has anything else, I would wish you all it's a beautiful day. I'm looking out the window here. This is a beautiful day. I hope you can all get out and enjoy it. And I thank you all very much for your work and for the conversation we've had today.
Thank you.